we are who we are because we understand our history. I think we cannot go any further if we don't learn where we from, where we come from. Yeah. If our ancestor or our elder passed today, we gotta learn from them. We gotta know. I have so many questions. I don't want to take all of them, but we're gonna invite him to come in the front, guys. Please, let's use this moment to ask questions. And I'm gonna start one. And because why do we have, when I went to on vacation in Detroit, the first thing I went to was a museum. I wanted to learn the history of the land, and I was frustrated because I didn't see the history of African American in that specific museum, because I saw it vividly, how abandoned houses, how poor the city was. But with that being said, I want to ask the question to Mr. Pablo. We have British that came here, we have Irish that came here. America itself is very diverse in terms of immigration. Why everybody else is American? And maybe you can ask me that. But everybody else is American. Even though they're British, they don't call them British American. Even though they are Irish, they don't call it Irish American. But African American, Black American. That's my first question.
I don't know if I should be the one answering that, but I think that a space of negotiation with my sister and my brother and ourselves. But I think that there is room for us to understand that we are one people, and if we understand that, we can all share that identity because we are one. So I actually would advocate for us to be simply called Africans, or African American, because in essence that we are. My trouble is with the label of immigrants that remains connected to you. The defining adjective of African, I would love to keep that because that speaks of where we come from. And the American speaks of where we are. But what I wrestle with is the descriptive of immigrants that remains, as you said, Irish came here as immigrants, the Italians and so on. You don't call them Italian immigrants. You call them, and that speaks, it's just a simple thing that says you're welcome here and you belong here. You're one of us now. And of course, on legal ground, and we have a lawyer here, if someone is still an immigrant or an asylee or whatever, understandable. But that label remains with you. When it comes to the African immigrant, the label remains with you wherever you go. To a point where we also have accepted that. When they ask you, so which race do we take on the box here? And you look at African Americans, so there's nothing for immigrants here. So okay, I think there's nothing for me. So that's where good appropriation takes place. Appropriate your brothers who came here before. That identity is yours because that is being truthful. This is who we are with Black Americans. We just got here in the recent past.
You want to answer that question too, or?
So were you asking about just the label,
So my question was, the British, all of the races came here as immigrants, and we don't label them, Irish immigrants, and we don't name them whatever Irish American. They are now the Americans, But for the years we don't call Black American Americans. They have to be that label that comes first before American, especially when it comes to brown, and Black population.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting topic, and how I've learned a lot about just the methods of integrating European Americans into society, and how it was pitted against, how white Americans were pitted against Black Americans, and how it was sort of a tactic to distinguish the differences in the white community, to bring them together to sort of pit them together. I have read about that, specifically thinking about New York, and in criminal law, I was thinking they were talking about the professional, making policing more professional, and how in police culture and when they were doing that movement, they started pitting white individuals against the minority communities. And so I think it is a tactic that has been done in the past. I don't know if it's specifically done now. You may differ, but it has been a tactic to bring people together and then pit others against each other.
Let me mention that this idea of worldview, and it's one of the major questions again of this century. As a species, do we continue with the Western model? And I say it's archaic, it's outdated, based upon this Newtonian Cartesian view of the world. It's archaic. We need a worldview that encompasses current science. It's called quantum science. It says we're all from the same source, we're all interconnected, we're all interdependent. We need to integrate that with the best of spiritual teachings, as well as grounded in what I call indigenous thought. And we all come from indigenous people, and we're all indigenous to the earth. Integrate those to a new worldview. The English language is how Western thought gets put into writing and practice. The English language. The only pronoun that is capitalized is I, not we. We need to almost like tear apart the language, decolonize it, feminize it. History is known as the story of white men fighting wars. That's why it's called his story. The idea of this hyphenated name, African American. Let's remember, when the country was founded in 1776, the only people who were citizens were white people. The folks who could vote were only white men that owned property, not white women. It wasn't until 1865 where, wow, we're going to emancipate, and many of us prefer not using the word slave. It objectifies people like you all are nothing but a slave. You came here, didn't know nothing, didn't have no culture, and we taught you. So we prefer Africans who were enslaved, moving away from that kind of a way of writing. But the reason why we use the word African American is because up until 1865, the only Americans were white people. They didn't need to think about what we're going to call these people. We got called colored, jigaboo, jambo, Aunt Jemima, Negro, octoroon, maroon. So there was a struggle that went on, understandable, of our folks saying, no, we ain't niggers, we ain't jambos, we ain't colored, let's figure something out. Because clearly you all still don't think we're fully American. So it's been a struggle. So part of our struggle isn't just about the naming by hyphen is deconstructing the English language. This is just one aspect of how we deconstruct it to come to terminology, to come to a different kind of a narrative. Keep saying, we're trying to perfect the democracy. Humans have been around for 2 or 3 million years. But we're on the planet, we're probably the youngest species on the planet. Plants have been around 200 million years. We're trying to figure out what it means to be human. We think we know. We're trying to figure out, as a species, how to relate to each other, how to relate to all that's around us. And here in North America, Turtle Island, America, we get a chance to mature as a species. To mature as a species. And part of the effort is around this idea of how do we term ourselves. It's just a longer struggle. It's been going on since 1865 at least.
All right. Anybody has a question too?
Yeah, I can speak up. So we heard a lot about. So we heard a lot about diversity, the challenges within the African American community, or even Black in general. And I think it all ties down to perception. How do people perceive Black people in the U.S.? Because Elisha brought up that folks aren't called Irish American, Italian American. They are called that, but they are celebrated because there's events, there's activities where other Americans want to integrate into that culture. But you never hear about that occurring within the Black community. Have you heard of events where being Black is being celebrated throughout the whole U.S., or is it just specific to one area? So I want to delve a little bit deeper into that. If we're looking at diversity, representation, and just how people perceive Black people, and in the spaces that you all work in, how do you navigate that? Especially when, because there's a saying, right? As you move up the ladder, you see less and less people like yourself.
Right.
So how do you navigate that and maximizing that opportunity, not only to be successful, but to also bring in other Black people in that space?
Well, as an attorney, I feel like I have come to a point where I really don't care about people's perspective of me. I just know who I am personally. And I have a specific story about my friend. So she was applying to Duke, and she was trying to get into their nursing graduate program for psychology, and she wasn't accepted. And I told her a story about what I was going through with the bar, and perseverance and continuing on, even though I had failed. And I told her, you know what, don't worry about it. Contact them, continue to knock on the door, continue to reach out, and just see what happens. And I had that conversation with myself before, because I was told that, as a Black person, you can't do this, you can't do that, or, people see you a certain way, so you can't approach certain, I've just been told that I can't do X, Y, Z all the time. And it's not true. There are barriers, there are obstacles that we have to work harder to get past, but that doesn't mean that we can't resiliently go for it and we can't overcome those obstacles. And so I told her, I said, just keep on knocking on the door, keep on going and trying to get into Duke. And she reached out to them consistently for a week, and I think she just wore them out and they accepted her into the following fall. And so, although there are obstacles, we just got to keep on going. Somebody may see me as oh, this Black girl, she's so young, she X, Y, Z. I don't care. I'm just going to keep on doing what I need to do, So, I understand, us in this room, there are people who have mindsets of I can't do this because of X, Y, Z. Kind of like a victim mentality.
Right.
And I understand where people are coming from, because I feel like I also have family members who have that type of mentality, but I'm like, okay, I know that these issues are going on. I know that we face, racism in Alabama and Kentucky, all over the nation, but how can we overcome that? Let's look at how we can overcome those obstacles while also acknowledging like there are barriers, and how can we, as educated people who understand that we can go past that, step over that, and then also help other people over it as well. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I'll stop rambling.
In response to that question, I've experienced that myself. I remember the first time, this is 8 years ago, I asked one of my buddies and I said, hey man, I'm going to try and get into banking. At the time I was just doing some direct, support stuff, and he's like, yeah man, that's not your thing. I just don't want you to be disappointed. So that's not going to work for you. I think you should stay in your lane. And I listened because that's the narrative that's there. We always stay in our lanes, right? But one of the biggest things that I've learned, that change begins with you, or begins with me. I have to be the change. Because if I want to see more of my people, I have to act, I have to go in, and like you said, once I go into these spaces, I have to find a way to bring other people in. And I think a lot of times we tend to just give up easily. You go in, you get shut down, and then you just kind of move on to the next stage. I think if we learn to be patient with it and then just persevere. I was shut down like 6. I have emails and I kept them. Look, that might be a little strange, but I kept those emails that said, at this time, we cannot, offer you a position. Another email says there's other people that are more qualified than you. Another email said, well, at this time, no, we'll keep you in mind. But that's not the one thing that kind of stopped me. I just kept pushing. My last interview, I just went in, found myself just being true to myself. So, and I didn't have to change who I was. I didn't have to change how I spoke. I was just myself. So, and then once you get in that environment, find a way to just engage with people from all over. And I think that's the way we break that cycle. I change, you change, everybody else is following behind. It's going to be a different story.
Yeah, we're going to go for more questions. We have a lot of, story where we hear, the first black person do this, the first black person. So we're going to ask a few questions, and then we're going to require just one panelist to answer so we can get time. So.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Ekima. I've been trying to talk for a while now, but Alicia doesn't give me the mic. Okay, so I just want to add on to what Valentino was saying. We back there were complaining about specifics. We have a lot of people talking, but they're just speaking things in general. They're not touching base on things that we actually need. It's not like everything is in vain. We are getting some of the things, but everybody has some specific questions they want to ask, and which is the time now. I want to touch on something that my friend asked me. He said, who do you think has the most challenge? The person who speaks first? Or the person who speaks last? Or somewhere in the middle? And I thought about it. I was like, yeah, maybe someone who speaks first. And it was like, yes, the person who speaks first has to make sure that he engages with, he has to break the ice. And the one who speaks last feels like everybody else has already done everything. So they don't really have space to speak, which is something that we deal with every time. You said, when you are the first person, you haven't seen many like you out there who are doing things that you aspire to do. It becomes very difficult for you. Just having that mental challenge. You don't have a mentor. You don't have someone to look up to. when I lost my dad, I started seeing the world differently. And when I had him around, I didn't have to struggle for many things. I mean, I just knew my dad would direct me here or direct me there. When he wasn't there anymore, I had to learn things for myself, and then I had to reach out to people that I don't really know, but because, I mean, they're in places that I want to be. So, I mean, like she said, we just need to stop worrying about what people think about us or think about you, and just try to be that first person. And if you feel like there's already many people who have done that, try to be the last two. I mean, I know that is challenging too. I mean, you feel like everybody's already doing this, I don't want to do that. I mean, even that can be something that we can admire to do. So, like my brother said there, just be the first person. Be the first person. Send yourself, knock on doors. It's going to be difficult. I mean, your dad is not there, your sister is not there, your friend is not there, someone that looks like you is not there. But if we just take that complaining mentality and we just put it in the back of our head, I mean, somewhere far, not even the back of our head,
Right.
yes, we can succeed. And I truly believe in that. So that's what I wanted to add.
We have 10 minutes before we close, so we're going to take 2 more questions. One is going to come.
That's them all. We'll just get them all on the
Yeah.
table. You get them all out there.
Okay, we'll ask.
Then we're going to respond to them.
Yeah. We'll ask both questions and then we'll let it.
Okay, I just wanted to ask, what's a piece of advice you wish you could give your younger self?
Okay. Who are you asking that for?
Anyone.
Okay. And then we'll get this one and then we'll answer.
My question is but it's directed at Yasha. During your speech, you mentioned that when you first came here, you struggled a lot, like financially, and doing like the right thing. Now that you have experience, what advice do you have for like us, the youth, or anyone in their early 20s? What would you have done differently to be in a better place right now financially?
Do you want to start with our question?
You can go.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a great question, yeah. So for me, I think I vaguely touched on 1 or 2 things. My surroundings. That's one big thing that I feel like if I could look back and look at Nyasha 10 years ago, my surroundings and valuing time. Wasted a lot of time doing other things that don't even make sense. Today, when I look back and I say, wow, if I had just taken the initiative to engage in, finishing school early or learning or staying in school and not focusing on work, I have a time in my life where I had the opportunity to go to school with the scholarship. But just because of the people I had around, they said, hey man, you got a job here, you should actually just take it. My surroundings shaped 2-3 years of my life, and then I realized it later that, okay, I could have made better decisions if I had the right people around me. You have to find someone that you can look up to around you, like a mentor. And it doesn't have to be, it could be your instructor, it could be someone in your family that has done some things. Find someone that you can just look up to. Be always open to learn. Learn as much as you can. That was the one thing that actually helped me kind of move forward and get to where I am today.
I operate every day, I call with goodness to all concerned. And when you do that, with a sense of purpose, then blessings fall like rain. Goodness to all concerned. That's how I do. We're all divine lights. With a manifestation every day of divineness, which says we can all do whatever the heck we want to do. we can have, and we all have, multiple expressions of creativity, not just one thing, as the academy wants to teach us. We're not just an accountant, or a lawyer, or a preacher, or a gardener. We're much more than that. So embrace that, and then let yourself flower, blossom, grow into It worked well when you were in the factory. So you look here, all you are is a factory worker. You come in here, you put one thing on a machine, that's all you are. That worked well in the American industrial model. Throw that out. Being specific, I said, being specific. Come visit me. Here's my card. Here's my information. I said I should grow something. I said the challenge for us as a species, yes, it's about human cultural connection, but there's some other things that we're faced with, folks. Environmental stuff. We got to figure this stuff out.
All right. I think our time is running out. We want to make sure, make sure you put your evaluation to the last desk. They'll give you a ticket, and then we're gonna draw the prices. Again, thank you so much for coming. If you finish your evaluation, just give it to the desk in the back. They'll give you a ticket, and then we're gonna do some drawing really fast.
Yeah, I reached out to like Maureen, so that's how I got in contact. So we try to speak to you, reach out to her,
And then last one.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely.
I'll be coming.
Please do. Please do.
Beautiful. I had one of my, messengers, Johnson.
Yeah.
He saw a poster and he said, man, you gotta come to the gym. I tell you, you better, take as much as you can because it's a great one. So it's really a pleasure. Larry Johnson.
Yeah.
Larry Johnson is the one guy that took me in when I first came. He was friends with my dad. Larry brought me
Man.
All right, guys, it's
Likewise
time
with
to
him.
play the lottery.
He's the real deal. Okay? Some folk talk about it and they play at it. Okay? There's the real deal. I've been
All right, let's see who is going to win the first one.
67. He's always been the real deal.
Yeah,
Okay?
I tell you that, that's true.
Yes, he has.
It's a pleasure.
Oh yeah, my honor, man. To just
The first number is
have him call me.
512393.
Yeah.
That was
He's
not
done
good.
it in the professional
Is
world.
that you?
And you can't. I don't even separate it.
The first one was 512393.
Personal life, it's all the same.
Is that you?
All the same.
Woo! Ale just got one.
Yeah.
Ale, I don't know.
There's another one for the budget.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's the real deal.
Yeah, Larry, man, I told him. You
All
are.
right, let's see who is the second.
Yeah,
Let's see who's
Great.
Lucky winner.
the lucky winner.
What experience?
512397. Ale, that's not you. Can't reach any card. 512397.
Oh,
Is it 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 9, 7?
9-7.
Looks like I'm very lucky today.
How did that happen?
It looks like there was a rigging somewhere.
You just put it in there right now.
And I really mixed it up.
I gotta mix it up. Alright. Let's see who's the next one. Okay, Linda's gonna read the next one. Let's see. Well, I think he's checking his numbers.
All right, I have 5, 1, 2, 3, 9, 2.
Good. Break that
I'm suspecting y'all.
What that
What?
that kind of definition what it does, it suits
Who's next?
well prevailing oppressive
I just hope it's 9 not area
All
right, next winner. 5, 1, 2, 3, 9, 4. Oh, finally! On the left side.
then actually the less diversity, the less progress we make.
We got 3 more left.
Okay. Me too.
I will definitely
All right,
invite you to come
next
over.
number.
I really enjoy it.
5, 1, 2, 3, 9, 1.
Thank you.
Oh.
That was the idea.
Absolutely.
It's a family. The whole family got